mindset.
Hello and welcome to the Mars Mindset Podcast, where we talk about personal development, psychology, preparation, and so much more. This is your host, Patrick Butler, and today I have an amazing conversation to share with you. I just had the opportunity to speak with the one and only Vanman, or Man with a Van on Twitter, in his first ever podcast interview. This is a great conversation. We talk about his company, the Vanman Company, which makes a suite of all natural animal-based products with super simple ingredients. And these are all great products. I use many of them myself. I can stand behind them. And so I wanted to interview Vanman to find out more about his business philosophy, ethics, and how he got started. This is a really great conversation. I learned a lot. I'm even more enthusiastic about these products and looking forward to future products after this conversation, and I know you will too. So please, without further delay, enjoy this conversation with Vanman. Hey, Vanman, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a real honor to have you on the show.
Yeah, for sure. It's my first podcast. We'll see how it goes.
Oh, fantastic. That's amazing, man. Thanks for coming on this podcast. This is going to be the number one podcast. So with you on here, it's guaranteed to be.
Yeah, I got a little reach.
100%. For the audience out there who maybe is not familiar with your products, your work just yet, would you mind telling them a little bit about yourself and how you got to this point?
Yeah, so I was about 27 years old. My life was like decent. I had like a decent job, but I just felt like I was like a homebody, and I was kind of just like getting soft, basically, just the works, like watching too much TV, not eating right, and just kind of wanted like a hard stop. So in 2019, I just like quit my job, bought like a van at like 3 a.m. on Craigslist, and then started living in that for like 14 months, just as a way to kind of like I just wanted to fix everything that was kind of like wrong. It wasn't like a horrible thing, but just get my life like straightened out. I had goals, I wanted to get them, and it was kind of right out of college. I had all this energy, and then I just like had a great like thing right out of college, job wise. We can talk about that later. And then it just kind of all fell apart, and it was just kind of picking up the pieces. And then yeah, over time I always kind of wanted to do the van thing, but I lived in New York for a bit, so I didn't even have a car. And then going back to the Midwest, I was in Indiana, and it was just like the perfect opportunity to try it. And then that's when I made like the Man with a Van Twitter handle, and just started basically just like shit posting, tweeting about whatever I was doing, how to live in a van. And then just kind of that whole Twitter space just got into like health and stuff, and that kind of led me down the road of learning about all that stuff, and then just trying to find products that were actually good. It was like impossible. And then just started making my own stuff, and then it just basically became the Vanman Company. And yeah, here we are today.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah, I'd love to learn more about that transition. So I think for a lot of people, their impression of the world when they're, in college and right when they get out, is very different than, let's say 2 to 3 years later, just because reality hits pretty hard. You realize like no one pays attention to you anymore. Nobody cares about you anymore. Like you're on your own, it's like, and I think for some people, like they struggle with that. What was your experience coming straight out of college?
Yeah, I think like every ambitious guy out of college has that, like, I have to make $1 million by X age, and if I don't get there, like I'm a failure. And that's just kind of like how I always felt right out of college. And you just kind of, you're grinding it out for a few years, and I grinded it out. I got some success, and then it just kind of all fell apart. And then you're just like, maybe I'm not going to hit these deadlines that I've set for myself arbitrarily, that I need to hit this by this point, I need to be retired by this point. It was kind of like, just I think that goes with everybody. They some people get that success right away, but everybody kind of has that thing coming out of college. They don't know how the real world really functions. Like if you get into a big company, you're not just going to become the CEO in 2 years, no matter how good you are. You still have to play those politics and stuff. And yeah, just that. I forget what the question was, but
Well, so you come out, you got an opportunity. It sounds like it fell apart somewhere along the way.
yeah.
But I mean, what was I guess it's always interesting to me here, sort of what was your intention getting out of school versus, like where we are today could be wildly different from that.
Yeah, so I was a CPA for out of college. I got like a master's degree in accounting, so I was ready to be an auditor, ready to be a partner, get on the partner track for a CPA firm. I started the job at a CPA firm. It was like the fifth one. It's called RSM. But about 2 weeks in, I just like I couldn't do it already, so I just quit 2 weeks in, and then I just messaged this guy who started a company out in New York. It was like a basically like Uber for news. So it was like a tech company. It was just him and one other dude at the time. And then so it's basically like if a news agency wanted a photo or video of an event, they would post on their app or on our app, and we would notify people in the area to come get video content, and we would sell that. So I love the idea, and then just convinced him to let me join. And then from there, we went from like 3 people to like 40 people. We raised like $8 million. We had all these celebrity investors. It was just like 9 months out of college, I had like over 500K in stock. I was like, holy shit, like I'm set.
Wow.
Chop it on Zillow and stuff, just like thinking everything is great. And then yeah, we grew. I was like the CFO of this 40-person company. It was just like out of that Silicon Valley show. It was pretty much like a lot of the same stuff. And then we just spent way too much money too fast, had way too many employees, couldn't get everybody to like to rein it in, couldn't get people fired and really like tighten up. Yeah, and then that just all fell apart. But you kind of realize there's like a paradigm shift, like just managing these investors. You meet these investors and they'll just cut you a 250K check without even doing diligence, without even looking at the accounting. And it
Wow.
just kind of like showed how much money is out there. And it's just like I could never go back to like a regular job after that, even though I had to for a little bit just to make ends meet. But yeah, it's just a paradigm shifting moment. It was so many people that just would cut a check for more money than I've ever seen in my life, and it was just like a second thing for them.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's amazing. It's always interesting to me about that world of outside investments because, there's something about starting a business where, it's not your money, right? Like
yeah,
it's not exactly going to get spent as wisely as possible. Like it's just natural, right? And so
yeah.
you
The
see these
waste
tech,
just comes
yeah.
so fast. You start buying swag items. You start getting like all these like fancy gives like little things with your name on it, and changing your LinkedIn profile. And it's more about like outward rather than like building a real business that has profit. And it's yeah, it was a wake up call for sure. Just watching all that money, more money than I could possibly imagine at that time, just get washed away and have nothing to show for it at the end. It was crazy. It's just wild.
Well, sometimes there's only one way to learn some of these lessons in life. So,
Yeah.
it's uh and better to learn those early than to dump, decades of your life into that, right? Then
Yeah, exactly. It was
then see what
devastated at the
happens.
time, but I think I would have been like a pretty big douchebag if I just got set for life off 9 months of work. And yeah, definitely had like an ego back then for sure.
So coming down off of this is when you decide I need to get a van. I'm
Well,
gonna
so I
go
had a
mobile.
couple of like corporate jobs in between there. So it's just like some lower jobs, and just realizing like I'm gonna have to work my way up again. Like I'm not gonna be able to get these like bigger roles, and just being like an accountant, I would just spreadsheet out how much money I'm making, how much I need to make, and then just looking at the timelines like 20, 30 years before I could ever like do anything that I wanted to do. So it's just like always kind of searching for a way to like start a business. I had, if anybody followed my Twitter for a long time, I had some like little businesses that I tried to start. They all had like a little bit of success, like a couple $1,000s in sales, and then they just kind of I got like banned from Facebook ads, just all just a bunch of little things, but always kind of searching and finding like courses and taking courses, and then yeah, I've eventually found like the Culti Bras course and the Dichi Saint Dichi. They when they built Kill Crew just from start to finish, or not to finish, but they built it just behind the scenes, and just watching them like build that brand from nothing to just like a behemoth. Like that was just another like paradigm shifting thing that you don't really have to like. It doesn't have to be perfect to start. You just have to come up with some type of mission, and like it's really all about the mission with a company. I used to just kind of think if somebody, I used to try to think like what would somebody buy rather than like what do I want to see in the world that isn't there already. So rather than trying to like arbitrage, how do I find what somebody else wants to buy? I just made exactly what I want that I can't buy, and that's just been like the windfall. Basically, it's just been perfect.
That's interesting. Yeah, because a lot of times people will talk about, like with business philosophy, building the product, like starting with the consumer backwards or whatever. And it's interesting the way that you describe that of trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes to figure out what they want to buy and then ultimately landing on what do you want to buy.
Yeah, it seems like every guru is like you need to niche down your customer. It needs to be very specific. needs to be X age, needs to be gender, needs to have these exact interests. And it just kind of like I was never able to do that. I would try to put myself into that niche, and I would make something that I thought that niche would want, and then it just never really took off. It just never, because I didn't have the passion that that niche would have had, so I don't think I knew how to deliver that message. But with the Vanman stuff, it was just so obvious. Like I just wanted clean ingredients, I wanted clean packaging, and just experimented and tested it on myself like a lab rat, and then if it worked, it was good.
Yeah. So tell me, and we should update the audience with what is the mission of Van Man exactly?
So like the whole vision, I think like initially was just to deliver products that were safer to use. But now I just kind of want to seeing like how the industry works, like getting suppliers and seeing, I don't know, it's just kind of boomer run. Like it just seems like it's hard. Like they don't have all their ducks in a row in a lot of these industries. So I really want to get into the food industry and start um like vertically integrate. So we have tallow in our beef tallow, but I want to get like Van Man Farms and get from start to finish. So get the cow, start selling meat, and start sourcing every single ingredient. Get like a bee farm, sourcing our own honey, and that's kind of like the goal. And I think vertically integrating each product, since they all use animal products, would almost like allow us to sell the other parts of the animal as food, and then just sort of blow up that industry because I think just there's not enough producers of that stuff, and that's why the price rises. There's so much like subsidies and soybeans and all that stuff, and
Yeah.
I think the goal is just to keep buying up land and then just produce meat and produce food and get just have way more options for people because I think I never was able to buy like grass fed food. I would never buy like organic things. Like I would only buy what was on sale for years and years and years. And I think that's how so many people live. And if you can sort of bring that price down and bring the quality up, then that's I think the most world changing is just getting all that supply chain in a row.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, especially if you want to own the quality standards of the entire
That's
process.
true.
Where did it start? So with the original idea or how many products do you have right now? You said six?
It was six. So it started with the tooth powder. It was basically, I had a tweet about it. I bought some fluoride toothpaste on accident. I was like pissed about it. It was this brand I trusted. It's called Spry toothpaste, and they had a fluoride free toothpaste. So I thought they were like a fluoride free company, but so I just re-upped on them and bought one, and it was fluoride. So I was pissed. So I just started using baking soda, and just dunked my toothbrush in there. But it's really harsh. Like it's super salty. It's not great. So I started adding like a few things like clay, a little charcoal, some salt, and then the aha moment was kind of around like when people were sharing that Arnold Schwarzenegger video that he would throw the egg in the blender and he would just eat it. I was just thinking like a lot of these recipes had calcium in the tooth powder. Like, what's the best source of calcium? I thought it would be eggshells. And lo and behold, I start to research the studies, and it's all like reverse tooth decay. Like, it's just obvious. And then you search eggshell toothpaste, and there's zero. There's not one option.
Really?
Yeah. So I just started testing it, and then it was perfect. I was getting these like dreams, these vivid dreams, just like not what I expected. I just thought, oh, it'd be like a better toothpaste and I'd be fine. Just getting no dream or getting big, like vivid dreams every night, and then just waking up without like a dirty mouth. Like, and I was like, why is that? And it kind of seems like they model toothpaste to just bomb your mouth, and then you have to brush again when you wake up because your mouth smells terrible, feels terrible, and just I don't know that kind of worked. And then there's no mint aftertaste in there, so I just released the mouth rinse. I just kind of thought, what's the healthiest way to deliver like a peppermint aftertaste, and it was like aloe vera and some salt, and that's been a good product. But the key was there was this Twitter follower. She reached out and said like, oh, I've been using eggshells in my toothpaste for years. I make my own, and I look at her TikTok. She had a big TikTok page, and she had this recipe for a face balm, and I was like, what is, I didn't even know what tallow was. I think I knew it was like beef related, but she had made it. I was like, oh my god, this is like perfect. Like I knew animal products were the way, but I didn't know of a face cream or like a moisturizer with animal products. I had always used like Dove lotion or just some man
Sure.
lotion you
Yeah.
buy, and just didn't think anything of it. And then if you can make like an actual moisturizer with edible ingredients with animal bait, like I knew that was just gonna crush. So I just started testing it, ordered all the stuff, and I actually like burned myself the first time I made it. Thought like for sure I was gonna have a blister, And then I throw the towel on there and there's no blister. I was like, this can't, like, I knew this was a blister burn. Like, I've had blister burns before. You just know, like, an hour later, there's going to be something. And there was just nothing. So I was like, holy shit, like, this stuff is crazy. And then, yeah, just making it was like just super soft. And then once I started releasing those and getting the reviews back, that's when it just like took off. That just became like the number one seller. And
Wow.
then,
Well, so on the, it's interesting because you interacted with somebody who created her own products, right? And I think this is
just for
something,
herself, though, yeah, she
yeah,
didn't,
just for
yeah,
herself, right? Like, and that's what a lot of people I think do. They kind of find a little adaptation. Maybe they do this certain thing for themselves, their family. Maybe they do something for their friends or something, right? But what is it that was okay? I need to take this idea, my weird tooth powder concoction with eggs and charcoal and all these things, and I need to sell this to people. I need to mass produce this.
yeah. So first, I was just gonna like try to sell it under like an organic name. I was thinking like just natural organics or something, just some generic name. And then I never really thought to connect my Twitter account with what I was trying to sell. I just always thought of Twitter as just like a playground. Like I would just mess around on Twitter. And then my friend had worked at Facebook, so we had these free ads. So we would kind of like I would always test different ideas on his like credit, so it was free to test them. And then he just said like, why don't you just do it under Vanman? So we started doing it under Vanman, and just like my mind just exploded, like thinking like this is perfect. Like I just thought of like immediately it was like a next like Burt's Bees type homegrown brand type thing, and I just saw the aesthetics like in my mind like immediately, and it was just off to work like instantly, just like designs and things. It was just I had no experience with designs. It was just really just like in Keynote, just dragging different things and trying to get it to look right. And then yeah, I knew like from as soon as he said that, I was like, I know this is going to be like big eventually. I thought it would take a lot more time to like get any sort of traction, but yeah, as soon as we released the tooth powder, it was like sold out in like an hour, and
Wow.
it was just I had
What
a
drove
job at
those
the time,
sales?
but it was a couple of retweets. It was a big retweet from like Soul Bra and from Calicrates. Um, I forget some other accounts, but yeah, it was all just organic, and Twitter was just yeah, Twitter is just like totally life changing. I think now, but
Yeah, and maybe for the audience out there who maybe they're not in this Twitter sphere, but I mean, like, I think a lot of people, they get, you could say, memed into good health, right?
yeah,
Sounds like that might have happened to you.
yeah, I always kind of like knew sort of what was healthy. Like I would just kind of eat like rigidly, like eat meat, vegetables, fruit, rice, and then I would just kind of fall off the wagon because it wasn't good food. It wasn't like it just wasn't didn't look good, didn't taste that good. And yeah, just like seeing people post their plates on Twitter and seeing like all these aesthetic meals, seeing like all these people changing their body composition over years, and just yeah, it does kind of just you just get memed into like how am I not taking these people's advice? Like obviously the medical people like have their own way of doing things, but if you I think anecdotal like evidence is much stronger because you could see it and like feel it and touch it, and it's just I don't know. I trust it a lot more, especially in like this Twitter age. Because if you do post something bad and people, a ton of people think it's wrong, they're going to come in and comment on it and tell you why it's wrong. So you could, in live time, you could see why people don't think they're right, and you can make your own decision. But when it's a doctor, you just like, oh, it's because they have the degrees. It's not because there's no discourse there, so they don't get to the
Yeah.
truth. Like doctors don't really they don't have to get to the truth because they are the authority. But on Twitter, you have to build your authority through like discourse. So as
Yeah.
you get more and more people to agree with you and think that you're right, you get this following, and yeah, it was just kind of like trusting these people. If you get if you have a person that has a big account that tweets something, and then you have a person that's totally unrelated to that account that also agrees with it, and they're in totally different worlds, then that kind of like solidifies that idea for me. I think
Yeah, it's
that's
an interesting consensus from different people that you might trust, and you trust because you follow their writing or
yeah,
their own development over the years. And, especially as it relates to, what's really interesting to me about your brand and what you're doing with it is just like the whole industry of I guess you would call them personal care products, like
yeah,
toothpaste and shampoos and whatever, like the things that you buy at like a pharmacy or grocery store, right?
yeah,
And how little people think about these things. I
yeah,
personally had a job back in the day. It was a retail job working for a company that sort of sold alternative men's care, products like shaving creams and things like that. And even that by itself, it was still made with a bunch of chemicals and trash and everything like that. But it was slightly better than what you're getting in the store. And there's a whole, chain of stores that are built around this. And it's just because we're sort of indoctrinated into just buying the basic brands, whether it's like,
Yeah, just susceptible to marketing, basically. I
yes.
think the biggest account, like years ago, I don't know if he's like, I don't know what happened to his account, but the Michael Porfiria, everybody who's been on Twitter knows that guy from a while back, where he talk about deep soy and talk about all like it was kind of like a joke account, but it was also like super true. I know he was like the pioneer for that, where he just say like everything is deep. So like all these products are just like compromised basically. And like the biggest moment for me was I had a can of tuna and it was just tuna in water and it just said contains soy. I was like, why on earth would a can of tuna? So then that was like the first time I read ingredients, because I would just read the front of labels. Like the lotion says, oh, it's great for more, like if it's moisturizing, then I assumed there was some like governing body that would like watch that and be like, oh, this is moisturizing, that's what it is. But there's not. Like there's none of that. There's no like
Yeah.
stronghold. And whenever there is a governing body, it's always like bought and paid for by those big, huge conglomerates, and they dictate what terms they could use. And yeah, I just started finally like reading ingredients, and you just get to the point where it's every single thing, like every single food item
I
is
think
just
that's an important point, is the every single thing. Because I
yeah.
think
Not that
most
there's
people, they
a couple better.
underestimate,
Yeah,
how it's truly everything. It's
yeah.
not
And you sound
like
simple hat like in the beginning, because you're just like
yes.
everything. You can't touch anything. You can't touch receipts. You can't touch any food. And it's overwhelming at first, but then you sort of see these other channels develop, like farmers markets. You can go straight to suppliers. You can look for better grocery stores. Like Sprouts is a little better of a grocery store, but even all their prepackaged stuff is all just terrible.
Yeah, it's all the same stuff. And it's
Yeah,
like you're gonna walk into a CVS and originally you might have bought a few products there, your toothpaste and shampoo and body wash and soap, whatever. And then you realize that it's basically nothing. You can't get anything from there anymore. And I
yeah,
think a lot more people are waking up to this, both from the internet and whatever their social media choices, and just seeing it. It's a growing movement, and it's so. Yeah, I think you're in the right industry at the right time
yeah. I
with
think
some
it's a
great
wave
products.
happening right now of just people realizing that. 'Cause, yeah, I've just seen like my own family, like my own people close to me, like just becoming obese, just having like no quality of life after the age of like 30 or 40, where like you hear like these people that are in Latin America, they're in these other countries, they have like 90-year-olds sprinting up the hill, and it's like all comes back down to their food quality, their how much sun they're getting. And it's just like once you boil it down, it gets so simple where it's so overwhelming at first. Like how can I possibly live so completely differently than when buying things at the grocery store? It's just, and how do I get outside? Like having like a desk job is so hard to get active, and just like yeah, under fluorescent lights and everything. It's just such an overwhelming thing to try to do. But you don't have to do everything all at once. You can sort of like piecemeal it and try to take a little bit off each time.
Yeah, totally. It's just developing those habits over time. And I think like sort of it usually goes in line with people's education levels too. But yeah, if you look at the general population and like if you followed what a regular person's going to do, you end up being sick. You end up being,
Yeah,
like the average American, overweight and, dealing with different diseases, using different pharmaceuticals to just get through your day. And you
yeah,
got to ask, like, why can't we just get up in the morning and be healthy? Why
yeah,
is our living actually driving us off a cliff?
yeah. It's crazy. It's sad too. You just
It's
some people don't get like find out in fact like in enough time, and then yeah, they get some ailment that they're like, oh, it must be genetics. It runs in my family. It's like there's probably 0% chance that you got something that's gonna kill you in your 40s from genetics. Like it's could
yeah.
happen, I'm sure, but yeah, it's such a cop out, I think.
So the tallow is interesting. So I had never heard of beef tallow in my entire life until learning about your products. Never
Yeah,
heard of it ever. And then you come to learn that it was something that was much more common in earlier times.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
curious, sort of, with that product, sort of like what was that? What was the revelation there?
As soon as I saw it, like I wanted to make like a Wagyu beef tallow, just like a because that's just kind of what came to mind initially. But the Wagyu beef is like way more oily, so it wouldn't have been a good product. But yeah, I just knew like as soon as I saw the video, I was like, this is gonna be huge. And I just searched on tallow, or I searched on Twitter people I follow in the word tallow, and it wasn't there. Like nobody had tweeted even the word. So I was like, did I just like get this like gift? Like how has nobody
Mm.
mentioned this? And I knew like instantly this is gonna be like this is huge. And now it seems like tallow is like taking over everything. Like people are cooking with it. Like Joe Rogan's cooking with it. Like it just, I didn't even think it like it didn't even exist in my universe before. Like I saw that video, and right after that, I was just seeing it everywhere. And if you look at the Google Trends thing, like the searches for tallow are just like skyrocketing too. So it's almost like a wave of people realizing that they could use something other than like Pam on their cooking oils and yeah,
Well, the oils, it's really about the oils and healthy oils in general, right? Like, and I
yeah,
think, like over recent years, like the ketogenic diet got really popular, got people thinking about oils as like a healthy thing, and then looking for healthy oils in their diet. And so it seems to be just like a natural extension of that. And then, of course, like on Twitter, there's, I can't open Twitter without reading about seed oils anymore.
yeah.
Um,
That's kind of how what happened though. It seems like keto was like the one thing. There's like everybody needs to get fat, so like anything is fat. Like canola oil could still be keto, and that kind of led people to understand that fat is like important and they need to eat fat. And then there was like the paleo where you want to eat naturally, you want to eat how the cavemen ate, and that like intersection is sort of like what. And then like the carnivore diet, which is just like all meat, and it just kind of like intersected. You want to eat paleo, but not like you want to eat ketogenic, you want to have high fat, but you want to have the right fats, paleo wise. And then you also want to have enough meat, which is what the carnivore people have, right? And then I think when you make that full circle, you just get back to like the simplicity of meat, fruit, and dairy. And then it's like that's what we've been eating forever. But we just had to take this roundabout way because people love the diets and like just the things. I've done it before. I've done keto, I've done like paleo, tried like a bunch of fasting before, and
yeah.
I've had like gut issues and have fixed them. But yeah, I think it just all comes back to just eating real food from the real source, and it's been around for over 200 years, and it's just so much simpler at that point. But you still have to source all that stuff. But just those diets are just almost like yeah, little peeks into what should be right, and then you kind of come full circle after a few years of like making that roundabout.
Yeah, experiencing your own complications with these different
Yeah,
diets and then landing almost back where you started, but just with much with just refined ingredients, I guess you
yeah,
could say.
and
Yeah.
just like, more confident about why it's right.
Yeah, 100%. And so you develop the beef tallow, and I'm curious like how this operation even works. You know what I mean? Like I think of Vanman, I imagine you just mixing some stuff up in the back of a van. I have this weird
Oh
visual
yeah.
in my head.
Yeah, so I didn't
Um,
actually live in a van like while I started this. It was just like a continuance of because I only lived in it for about 14 months and I was done in 2020 and then we
may I
launched.
ask what type of van?
It was like a GMC Savannah. It's in the
Oh, that's a
profile
great
picture.
van.
Yeah, it's a big old van. It was like a V8. I had to put a ton of money into it because it just kept breaking down. So I ended up like not even saving money, like living in a van because I had to put like 10 grand into it. But yeah, I got it for like $1,500 or something. I had a bed already in there. It was definitely like run down a bit, but I didn't want anything like special. I just wanted to like I wanted to like test myself and like have to go to the gym to take a shower. I have to go. I can't have like snacks. I don't have a giant TV. I don't have like a recliner chair. And that was like huge for me, just like a 180 lifestyle wise, just like not wasting time just sitting there on your phone. I mean, I'd be on my phone sometimes in there, but just not having that extreme comfort of like your house, a couch, and a TV. That you got to just get out of that at some point in life, and then see where you can go
Yeah,
when
I
you
mean,
do
you look
that.
at how many young guys are just, they're glued to their couch playing Call of Duty all day.
Yeah,
And I mean, I think I like that approach. I can't, I'm not trying to widely recommend it, but
yeah.
going very, Spartan like that and just kind of giving yourself the bare minimum, sort of putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation that you have to get out of. It sounds like a great way to
Yeah, I've
break
always
that
had like an
cycle.
extreme approach where like as soon as I had the idea, I was like, oh, I'm just gonna do it and just do it like all the way. That might not work for some people because like you might have some horrible
Yeah.
days and trying to find somewhere to like go to the bathroom or something. But yeah, it was definitely fun. I'll probably do it again, but probably have like a nicer van and maybe like supplement, not totally in the van, but yeah, I want to do it again at some point, if not just for the content.
I've always thought about the van life as well. And the way I look at it is like, it sounds really awesome if you have someplace else to go when you don't want to be in the van. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly. Like when you're stuck there, like the
Yeah.
coolest thing was like if somebody invites you somewhere, or if like you're about to take a trip, the best thing was like you don't have to gather your belongings. You don't have to like put anything in a bag. You drive to where you're going, and then you could pick out whatever you want. That was like the coolest thing. Like you just felt so like liberated. You don't have to plan for anything. If somebody wants you somewhere and you want to go there, you go instantly because all of your stuff is in the van. You have nothing else like, so that simplicity I try to carry too is just like, I don't need all the stuff in my house. I don't need like all these different clothes. Like I try to like keep everything simple. I think there's a time and a place for that stuff when you're like, I don't know, like an event or something. But like I try to keep the day to day just super simple and not need all these different things and gadgets and like just simplify it. And that's just like allowed more bandwidth to like focus on the things that I want to and try to like build something real.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I think you embody that with their products because they're all very simple, and
Yeah.
you know, it seems like that could be one of the reasons why products are not that way, is because it's like when you need less, right? If you can use that beef towel balm and you can use that for 10 different purposes,
Yeah,
right? It's good
exactly.
for
The
burns and
versatility.
moisturizing and all these things. It's not very profitable for Procter and Gamble to sell something like that, right?
Yeah, just to knock out like five of their different SKUs. But yeah, it just it almost makes sense. Like they just want you back. So like a lot of people say like they'll use Burt's Bees and they'll put it on and then like it'll like dry their lips, so they have to keep putting it on. And I used to use Burt's Bees and I would use it every day. And if I forgot it, I would remember because my lips like didn't feel good. But like if you're using a real product, you should never have like you should never rely on a product. Like it's most of the issues people have, they're usually like gut related, I think, or like environment related. So like these products can help you like um negate the symptoms, but you need to address like the inner reasons why you have psoriasis or why you have eczema. Because people think they're totally genetic or they're stuck with these things for life, but they're totally not. And yeah, if you could provide them some relief while they try to address that, yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that as well is with these products that people use, like Burt's Bees, for instance. When I like my recollection of that brand is one that was different from the big, like, let's say, chapstick company, right? It was like it was the alternative brand,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
then like what happens?
So they got bought in 2007, and I think they were looked at as the alternative brand like for 2008 through 20 through now. Like people still think that they're the alternative brand, but they've been Clorox owned for almost 15 years now. So it's just crazy how well that they can like shield that and not because anytime somebody hears that they reconsider why they use it and they think it was from this guy that had this sweet beef or this sweet beef farm and he makes this stuff and it like that's just hasn't been the case for over a decade now, and they still are able to just take over all the shelves. They have huge things of all these different types of products, and I don't think anybody really gives a second guess until they read the back of the ingredients. But it takes years to kind of get into that paradigm where you should even read the ingredients. Because I've
Yeah.
been there. Yeah, you're just marketed to, and you're a subject, and you take that marketing and you believe it.
Well, yeah, it goes to the power of marketing, right? Like they built a brand that did portray that sort of alternative option, and so people were really into it. It's really awesome. And then, like you said, it's somewhere along the way they get bought, and then the product is no longer the same. And I think this is generally where it's like that's the trap that people have been falling into with these cosmetic personal care products for a really long time, is they just don't question them. They're used to
Yeah.
them, people buy them, the marketing has been reinforced to them. And so I mean, like, sounds like one of the core messages here is like you got to question every single product that you use and look at the source.
Yeah, and it's tough for some people to do that. They have so many other things going on that they just want to live their lives. Like they're not trying to do they're not trying to be a pro athlete. They're not trying to do these elite level things where they need to monitor all their different ingredients. So I think a lot of people brush it off and they just say, I'm just living my life. Like I don't need to worry about these things. But you could just take a month of focus and figure out all these things that are just literally poisoning you and then apply that to your life. And you don't have to be totally anal about it. Like you can do 80% perfect and then you could still, if you're like a big fan of some bad food, like you could still eat that every once in a while. It doesn't have to be like a all or nothing. Like I think that
Yeah.
stops people too. Oh, I can't live my life how I want to, and I'm just gonna ignore it. But they can still have some of what they want. I mean, it's better than not to, but you could still and
Totally.
not get cancer and not get all these things that people think are just like God given almost.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes back to kind of like what you said earlier, where you kind of assume that there's these regulatory agencies that would like make sure that that's not the case. But I think what we're learning over time more and more is that a lot of these products, a lot of these things that we assume are healthy, normal, natural, or people are just exposed to all the time, like that they are carcinogenic, that there are horrible effects from them. And by the time that feedback loop is closed, you're going to be riddled with,
Yeah.
you're going to have been affected by it. Right. So
Yeah, I
it's one of
think
those things,
everybody
just
thinks
going
like
back to the
there's like
source.
some FDA or like they're gonna check every product, they're gonna test it all, they're gonna make sure this is what's in there. And that's just not the case. And I think a lot of these big companies implant their own people in these organizations, and then they come up with the verbiage. There's like with Clorox, they were able to make canola oil be labeled as natural because they were able to be behind the scenes making the rules of what can be natural. So they're like, if you go behind all this stuff, they're able to just dictate exactly what the verbiage is, and then they use that verbiage like deceitfully, and it's just diabolical. They just say it's all these natural things, and like canola is not natural. Like canola is like totally a GMO thing. It didn't exist before, and now they just extract all this food from it.
Yeah, and people interested in that, just it's as simple as just going on YouTube and looking up like how it's made, look up canola oil, and then look up
Yeah,
olive oil and just compare the processes. And it's
yeah,
like, who knows? There could be some downsides to olive oil, right? But it comes down to just it's a process that people have been doing for thousands of years. It's pretty straightforward. You could do it yourself. And it's just more of it's like simplicity. When you look at these products and you look at the wide world, I think it could be really confusing and overwhelming for people to start to question every single product they use is bad, right?
yeah.
But if you can look at it from the perspective of like, well, what's just the simplest, like what can I just kind of lean on as being like the least processed, the least risk for the product? Because ultimately we assume a risk whenever we consume anything.
Yeah, I think that word like Lindy kind of came into like the
Lindy,
mental
yeah.
like, career like a few years ago, and that just sort of you apply that to like everything. Was it here? This how long has it been here? And if it hasn't been here that long, like you should really scrutinize like why do we have it right now? And almost nothing passes the test when it's new. If it hasn't been here for that long, why take the risk? Let somebody else make it Lindy and let them use it for 200 years, and then somebody else could use it. But yeah, I'm not going to take that risk on most of the stuff that hasn't been around.
So do you apply the Lindy framework to deciding on new products?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So like the next thing we're working at is soap. So it's kind of like two different routes. There's either like tallow soap, goat's milk soap, or like Aleppo soap. Aleppo soap is like the oldest soap like that's ever been made. It was just olive oil and then this certain berry, the oil from that. And that's just like a little too hard to make. So we'll probably make like a tallow soap with like goat's milk. But yeah, it just kind of comes back to like, all these different ingredients that I don't know who comes up with it. It's got to just be these science people that are just like, we got to trust the science because there's one study on this like sodium lauryl, whatever it is, and they just throw it in there. It's just like I don't know if it's stupidity or if it's like incompetence or if they are actually evil. Like it's hard to because it seems like everything like the government agencies are just giant DMVs, like they're just horribly run. And then it's hard, like you can flip it 180. Are these people like diabolical world dominators? Are they trying to depopulate the earth? I don't know what's the case, but I just know either way they produce terrible stuff.
Yeah, I
And it's
mean,
yeah,
it's really like, to me, it's almost not so much a mystery when you understand like the science of systems, right? Like I've read this great book by John Gall. It's called Systemantics, and you look at systems in general, and like they always fight to protect themselves is one of like the tenets of this. And so like,
yeah,
and they always grow a little bit every year. And there's all these things with systems where, you can just look at, you look at the FDA and you look at how it was designed for a good purpose, right? It was
yeah,
designed to protect people from having like, having no regulations on stuff. Like I think it's safe to say that there should be regulations on all these products. But then, like 100 years later, the system has been completely corrupt to the core, and
yeah.
it's lost. It's started to do the opposite of what it originally intended, and which is just like the natural course of some of these systems. And
Companies too, like these companies that have been around for 100 years, like Colgate had a tooth powder when they first came out. Now they don't,
wow,
they do have a tooth powder, but they're like their first product, like the guy who started that business probably had a recipe way different than what it is now. Like Burt's Bees was a natural company
yeah.
too, but Colgate, I mean, some of these companies have been around for over 100 years and all their founders are way dead and gone. And they're like, their mission is just gone. So they're just these vessels of profit that they're trying to just
Well, yeah,
extract
they're
from.
they could be some of the largest companies in the United States too. Like it's one of those things where you look in the back of the bottle or whatever, and you realize that almost all the products are owned by like one of 10 companies or something. And they're publicly traded companies, they're, passing through different chains of executives are in
Yeah.
control, and they're just pushing for their own lives and their own well-being, which means they need to deliver a higher profit at the end of every quarter as a publicly traded company. And then that leads to, over a course of decades, like a degradation of the product and the integrity of the product and the integrity of the brand, right?
Yeah, and I think it takes working in like one of those office jobs too, where you work for a big public company. You see how they're running. You see, like, if you have a good idea, you're never going to get it implemented if you're just a new employee. And some companies are really well run, but most of them, like, you're just doing like a desk job, or you're just answering emails, or yeah, you just see it's like like they don't. It's just not. There's no soul in these companies anymore. It's all just. It's been generations and generations gone, and
Yep.
they just, yeah, they're just the best possible combination of profit, and they spit it out and market the hell out of it.
100%. That's why startups are where it's at. It's because you can join a business, you can have a legitimate impact on it, and you can be a part of a business that you really care about. Like if I was on the outside and I loved personal cosmetic items, I wanted to embrace an all natural thing. Like, the option is start a company or join one like yours.
Yeah.
Try and contribute value to a brand that you believe in.
And that's kind of like farmers markets. Like growing up, I would have never, like, my family never went to farmers markets. I always thought of them as just like almost like flea markets. Like they were just places where people would go sell shit. But like once you realize the grocery store, all those shelves are just bought by these five companies, and they have all the shelf space, and they give you this illusion of that there's all these different options, and you have all these different choices. Like just say like the cereal aisle, for example, there's just all these different choices you could have, but they're all from two companies. It's all the same ingredients. They just flavor it a little bit differently. And it goes to everything from sauces to condiments to just everything is all just, they just buy that whole thing. And then yeah, you realize like farmers markets are just so much different. You can go right to the source, and they never really crossed my mind years ago, and I don't know how it didn't, but now it's that's why I can understand people that don't get it right away, because I didn't get it. I never thought
Totally.
about it. So like some people just get mad at people that are eating seed oils, like they just don't know, like they just don't know. Like I didn't know for a long time. Even in the van, I would go to Chipotle, or I would go to these like places and just eat, because I thought like, oh, it's meat. It's like it's that baseline of understanding. Like, at least you're not eating candy. At least you're not eating like total shit. You're still eating food,
Yeah.
and then you just kind of get more nuanced and more nuanced, and yeah, get to that point. But it just takes time. That's why there's never really like a point to like get too angry at somebody that just doesn't get it yet, because like everybody gets that like clicking moment at a
Yeah.
different time.
100%. 100%. Well, I got a question. I'm going to put you on the spot. So Procter and Gamble, they come to you, they say, Vanman, private island,
Yeah.
$10 million, you're all set. We're just going to take your brand over and start, selling these same products, just like you remember them, same brand, same beef
Yeah.
tallow, right? What do you tell them?
Yeah, I mean, like I thought about this a lot, because I've been like listening to this podcast, that guy Moise Ali that sold native brands, and like it would just be so tempting. But I try to kind of go back to like what those the Kill Crew guys would say. Like you need to think about these businesses as a whole lifetime value, and like I kind of think of even like a step further. Like if I could pass this down to my family and keep it all like in house, and have people's kids using the same product, it's just like a $10 million offer is like a slap in the face almost. Like I got
Mm,
it's definitely not worth that much, like because like with the whatever you'd say, like the KPIs or whatever, but it's just so easy to turn something like that down. Like if it was 100 or something, it'd be like very difficult, obviously, but I would try to stay true to my guns there. I don't ever want to sell. I don't ever want to take money from like big companies or VCs. I just think it's anti-mission, basically, just to go. It's like selling out. Like, is it really worth? Because I don't need much. Like I've lived in a van before. I can live on $500 a month if I need to. And yeah, I think definitely like 10 million would be easy. 100 million would be like very hard to say no, but they wouldn't offer it anyways. But it would be. I
you
think
never
that would
know
be,
where it could go,
yeah,
though. You know what I'm saying? Like at
oh,
some
right
point,
now, I mean, yeah, I think at some point somebody will. But
you got to wonder where Bert is at with Bert's Bees. You know what I mean? Like,
his wife like took it over, and now he's like dead. He's been dead for a while now.
but his family, they must have
Oh,
got
yeah.
paid, right? And at some point, it must have started to add up and make sense. But I think, what you're talking about, like it's like having that integrity and holding that integrity is really the battle of the day today, because of course you want to look out for yourself but it's like it's the integrity of your business and the customers that you have and the quality that they expect and the story that they've been told. Like what is the value here? Like what is more important? And I think you
Yeah.
really nailed it, where it's like if you could have generations of this business, like that could be even if that means no big payday, could be more
Yeah.
fulfilling at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Like, do I get to keep my soul, and then like the cash could still grow to where it's a point where it's still like a amazing lifestyle and everything. So, yeah, I think there's no way at this point. But yeah, it's if it was the right person, like I'd have to consider. But yeah, I don't think I could ever do it. And I know like my partners would probably be like super like come on, let's just do it or something. But it's just yeah, I feel like it'd be so easy to say no at this point because I just see some people have just like people are just telling other people about it. Like we've just shut off all these ads recently, and sales are still going. So that means people are telling other people, or
Wow.
they're finding out somehow that so they're finding out about Van Man somehow. So I think that's just what's blown me away is like how many people will share stuff just on their own accord. They'll just share it on their profile. They have all these followers, and they don't expect anything in return. And it's just I don't know. It's blown me away with that, just the word of mouth.
I mean, that's what happens when you have a product that works, right? If
Yeah.
the product works really well, that's your marketing.
Yeah. And I don't want to be like that person, like that company where 10 years from now, like, oh, Van Man sold out like 5 years ago. I didn't even know. Like I've been using this stuff for 5 years. Like that's just so deceptive. I feel like you can never do that with something like this.
Well, that's why I wanted to interview you anyways, to get this out in public and also hold you accountable for if if in 10
Yeah.
years
Yeah.
I'm
Have this
looking at the
book and
back of
flip
my
it up.
beef
Yeah.
tallow. um, that's awesome. But I am, kind of get back into like manufacturing these new products. I'm curious about your method of deciding like what is the next one to take on, because like if anyone watches like Shark Tank, right? Like people come up with new products all the time, and when you enter a world like this, you're really entering a world with absolute sharks, like toothpaste, moisturizers. These are not like industries where there's no competition, right? These are industries that are absolute cutthroat. There's millions of dollars of engineering and advertisement and understand, like trying to better push to the consumer, and people with a lot more resources trying to do these things. So when it comes to like a strategy of new product launches, getting them into the right, filling that niche, like figuring out something that could be widely manufactured, like I'm curious sort of how you guys approach that.
I have like 50 things written down that I want to do. Like I've tried deodorant so many times, like 20 different recipes, and it just like it'll either like rip your armpit hair out, or it just like doesn't work. It's like a natural deodorant is just so hard to make and then have everybody like it. It's just really tough. So that's kind of on the back burner, but I know we'll get it at some point. But soap, it was just like buying soap. Like I'm trying to find these soaps, and I'll find these ones on Etsy that are like great titles. They'll be like goat's milk soap, and then you look at it and they're still using crappy oils. Like they just don't exist in the paradigm that I exist in anymore. Like where they don't care, they don't look at every single ingredient. They kind of just might read like a recipe on some blog that was from 5 years ago before like seed oils kind of took the main stage, I guess. And yes, I forget
Yeah.
what I'm saying there, but yeah, just kind of what I want to buy, and then I can't find a soap, so I'm just find a good recipe for soap, change what I need to change, test it out, and then go from there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I went to a farmer's market. I go to farmer's market all the time, all about them, and even there, you can be deceived. I bought a
Yeah,
soap that it was coming from, like, it's like this family makes the soap, and so I'm just like, oh, great, sure, like I'll try that out. Buy the soap, get home, look at the ingredients, and literally the first two ingredients was soy and canola oil, and I'm
yeah,
just
like
like,
they
well, I
just
can't
don't
use
they
this.
don't exist in that paradigm. So it's kind of a they could be that they're not bad intentioned or anything. It's just they're like a casualty of the system almost. That stuff is so cheap, it's so readily available, it's used in so many products that people think, oh, it's of course this has been checked by scientists and they know that it's good for us. But those scientists are just like not right, I guess.
Have you considered doing any testing or anything to compare your products against others to show the
Yeah,
effects? I've seen a ton of testimonials, and I recommend everyone check out testimonials online because there's a ton of them about like the benefits of your products. But have you considered doing anything more formally there?
yeah, I want to do like some type of clinical thing. Like I've seen that on some other smaller sites where they'll do it with like 50 people, they'll do it with 100 people. So it's not a huge thing, but it's definitely doable. Yeah, I definitely considered it. It's just kind of like how much work is it to get there, and I want to get more products out, and I just know it works already. And if people don't trust me, then they just don't have to buy, I guess. But yeah, at some point, that stuff is big to convince those people that don't exist in that paradigm. They don't automatically assume that tallow is good because they've been through that ringer of realizing what's good and bad. And then yeah, you can convince those people with the science studies, because I know the science would back it up. It's just you got to get that science to where it's like easily convincing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's the devil's advocate position of someone saying, well, your product's not being regulated by the
Yeah.
FDA, or your products, you got some guy in a van making some beef tallow. Like, how do
Yeah.
I know this is any good for me? You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
is
We
a
want those
totally
people
reasonable
too.
concern, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's why I don't get mad at those people. Like some people just in the comments of Instagram, like, oh, like how would I do this? Like this will cause acne. I would have thought that this would have caused acne before because I would have you would see in like cartoons, they would put like bacon grease on their face and a pimple would like pop up. I remember that from like a Family Guy episode. So that was just like that was what people thought. Animal grease or grease on your face causes acne. And that was just what almost everybody existed in. And yeah, it's just not the case.
Yeah, that's crazy. So what are the use cases for that product, for the tallow balm, while we're talking about? People
Tallow,
use
like
it on their
I
whole
designed
face.
it just for like anti-aging, so just a face cream, and then it just kind of took a life of its own. Like there was a woman that would put it on, even my own mom, she would put it on her face, and she's like, my nails are getting way stronger because the stuff just absorbs everywhere. Like it's just the same pH as your own skin oil, so it's like supplementing that. If it's not properly running, then that just gives you like a big chunk of properly running like oil to use for to build whatever it needs to build. And I think it just makes things stronger. But yeah, there was one like last year, 4th of July, which was like right after we released it, there was a kid who had like hives all over his arms for like over a year, I think. And he got the tallow and he put it on his arms and it was gone in like 3 days. And
Wow.
there's like, yeah, there's other people that have 9 years, 10 years, they have like they'll have like dry spots or they'll have just some weird thing that's been like they just accepted it and then they try for a week or like a day and the stuff is just gone. Like it just blows my mind how much more powerful it is than even like putting it on a cut or like an infection. There was a woman who had like a got a pedicure and split open her toe and she thought for sure I guess it was gonna be infected. It was like growing. So she put the towel on for 2 days and it was like completely gone, completely like a scab. Like so it's just like then I started like it's hard to market something like that because you want to market something as like an anti-aging face cream, but then how do you tell people it also works for eczema, for psoriasis, for all this stuff without just sounding like an idiot? Like of course this stuff can't work for all that stuff, but it does. Like it's food. Like it's not a some science experiment designed to just tackle one issue like these pharma drugs do. They don't take into like the whole account of the body. Like your body eats honey or your body like uses honey, it uses tallow, so it's so easy for your body to use with versatility. You could use it for anything. I think it just almost like self-regulates whatever skin you put it on. That's why I kind of want to do like a clinical thing with like skin cancer, but I don't know if people would trust just that and not do any other type of thing. But I almost think of like you just rub this on for like a month and it'll probably go away. But I don't
Wow.
really know.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think when you say it's food, right? Like, I think a
Yeah.
lot of people, it just goes to show kind of how uh disconnected we are from the nature of all these products, right? Like, anything that you put on your skin, you should be willing to eat.
Yeah, it's great. Like that's
People
why
think that sounds crazy.
yeah, I just shared that Joe Rogan clip from like 2019. It was like Ben Greenfield. He's just saying like your mouth, like your skin is a mouth, basically. Like it just absorbs all this stuff. And there's that diagram of all these different like numbers. Like your forehead absorbs things really fast. Like there's certain parts of your body that absorb things way faster, and you're taking all that in. And yeah, it's I don't know. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is crazy, and I think people should try it with their don't actually I want to be, but like with your products at home, think like don't eat them, but like think would you consume this, and if you wouldn't, then
Yeah,
it's like you got to second guess
like the
why you're
eggs as
using it.
shampoo thing too. Like that's just been like a which is crazy. Like I always use shampoo, and then somebody like 10 years ago was like, "Why are you using shampoo? You don't need to use shampoo." That was like before I got into any of this stuff. I just stopped using shampoo because I didn't know why I was using it, and my hair was like so thin. It was just like it just felt like brittle when it was like after the shampoo, and then I just stopped washing my hair twice a day, and it just started to like change, and I was like so worried about losing my hair or something. Like it was like if somebody didn't tell me that, maybe I would have by now. But and then using like the eggs, I would have never thought to use eggs. And then you try it once, and your hair is just like silk, and you're just like, how does this not? It's because eggs are so cheap. Like, of course it's not gonna be well known. So all this stuff is so cheap and so like readily available. There's no like, it's not proprietary. Like, you could find 20 different tallow balms. They'll probably give you a good result. Like they're all gonna be good. So it's just a matter of like who do you want to support with the towel, like with your buy. Because I couldn't say that my tallow balm is 10 times better than the next tallow balm because we all use tallow and tallow is still going to give you like a great result. But yeah, all these other ones try to say like, oh, we have this special proprietary thing that's going to penetrate your skin, and they show these little diagrams. like that's just an angle that they've developed for themselves. They're just like it's not actually real. They've just that's how they're selling it to you. So it's once you see behind that veil, basically, then you look at it all as marketing and all these things like because you can make the science go either way. They've said eggs are bad, they've said eggs are good, and they have science to back it up, whether it's real or not. It backs up both points. So you never know what's true until you kind of like really learn, I guess.
Wow. Well, I'm going to go ahead and declare you a pioneer of anti-marketing because I think that's really what it comes down to is like, yeah, like someone could have another beef tallow bomb, whatever, and tallow bomb, and they can find their angle. And this is like how advertisement became a thing in the first place. Like,
Yeah.
there's a great book out there called My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by Claude Hopkins. And this guy, in like the late 1800s was working on the early advertisement campaigns for things like toothpaste. And toothpaste was not a product that people used.
People didn't brush their teeth back then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they barely brush their teeth. If they did, they might use a powder or some of these other alternatives. It wasn't like paste was not like the default way to brush your teeth. And then, but it was through a successful marketing campaign with like, I think it was like Pepsodent or something like that, that toothpaste took over the United States, but it wasn't always that way. And it was really just a matter of like, some of the principles of advertising is just talking about what your product does. And if the competitor doesn't talk about that, then it just gives you an edge. And so you saying something like, I don't care if you use someone else's tallow bomb. It's like, you're buying this to support who you want to support. That's really the anti-marketing, right? Because it's separating it's fully embracing the provider of the product over the brand or what its stated capabilities are, and looking at these things as they're super simple and they need to stay super simple.
Yeah.
And if I can make something super simple, so can someone else. But if you like it from me, then great.
Yeah, exactly. I think it just comes down to the mission thing. And I forget what I was going to say, but I forgot I was going to say something about tallow.
Some more magic tallow.
Yeah.
Well, tell me, I feel like I could ask you questions about this stuff all day long. However, I'm sure you got more tallow to spin up over there. So,
oh no, it was about the twice a day because like people ask me
yeah,
like, how much should I use like the tooth powder? Should I use it like all like do I have to use it every time? And I just like tell people like twice a day brushing with toothpaste is like is marketing from that back in that period. Like
wow,
they convinced people to say you needed to brush your teeth twice, and then they made your mouth feel like shit, so you needed to brush twice. So like these guys like Carnivore MD, they come out and say like you don't need to brush your teeth at all. Which if you do live in Costa Rica and have perfect water and food, and you're getting sun and your life is perfect, you don't need to. I don't think you need to brush your teeth. Like you could brush them with water, or like it's like so. I think I would be like one of the only companies to say like you don't need to use the product. You don't need to like you need to address it from a diet and lifestyle perspective. This is just more of a supplement. Like if you eat some bad food or you have some like sugars or something, you want to offset the pH with the toothpaste. But you don't really need to use a product religiously. Like every time you get out of the shower, you don't need to apply tallow balm. You should give your skin a break from it and see how it adjusts. I think that's kind of lost because all obviously anybody who sells something wants to sell more, and the more you use, the more I sell. But it's not the case. It's not true. So I don't want to say that. So I always tell people like, don't use it all the time. You could use pure coconut oil. You could use nothing for a few days and just let your body like tell you when it needs to get something, and you sort of come to that homeostasis of I like to use it when I feel this way, or after I eat this type of thing, or if my skin's like dry after sun, I'll use it. But yeah, it's not something you should use every day. No product you should use every single day. And I think that never gets told by anybody selling a product, which is just sad, I guess.
Yeah, because people in boardrooms across the country are flipping out right now. Imagine like, what do you mean? Like, you know what I mean? Telling people to not consume your product. But again, it's like that radical honesty and that radical just being upfront and real about how simple this stuff is and how to actually use it. It's like I really think that that's going to win you more favor in
I
2022 and
blood
beyond
money.
than
I don't want that blood money. I want like a real, I want like it does help people, but it's not something you have to have at all points in time. So I think that's just bad juju on the money you're getting, basically.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. I agree. Fantastic. Well, so for what's next for the Vanman company?
Oh, we're doing soap. Soap will be next, and then hopefully like a goat's milk shampoo, and then from there, I want to take everything. I mean, everything from cleaning products to laundry detergent to like granola bars to beef jerky to I want to do like cooking oils. I just think I'd rather just release all of it and try to control all the supply lines, whether that's with a partner, like white labeling something with a really trusted partner. Um, that's kind of the mission, to just offer anything that you use almost every day. And just like, if the Van Man thing was on there, you would know it's been like through this paradigm, and this is like, we're not going to put anything in there that we know is bad, and we'll adjust that if something comes out as not good. Like I'm not like going to stand on a hill and say like this has to be in there because it's always been in there. Like I'll change a recipe, and as long as like it'll be up front, like everything will be kind of out in the open.
I love that, man. I think operating on those values, especially as a business these days, is super important. Being transparent with your consumer and being able to make adjustments and like acknowledge if you are wrong and be able to, just be able to have that trust. Again, like it's that brand trust that I think that you guys are doing really well with. I've enjoyed the products. I recommend everyone try these products. I've been personally pushing them on my family members and things like that. So, I think just stating your values like that is huge, and I'm looking forward to supporting more of your products in the future. Excited to see what you guys come up with. Because
Yeah,
if I
appreciate it.
could, if I could buy Vanman cooking oil and Vanman steaks, I would be happy to do so.
Yeah, yeah, I want to get it all. I want to take it all back. I think that's all that's been stolen from us, pretty much.
Yeah, 100%. Hopefully, we can work our way to a more healthy population overall.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, awesome, man. Well, hey, thank you so much for your time today. Again, I can ask you questions all day long, but maybe we'll check back in a few months to get some new products in, see what's going
Yeah.
on. And before we wrap up, where should people find you online?
The best is just the on Twitter is man underscore with underscore a van. And then Instagram is the Van Man Company, and then just the website vanman.shop.
Fantastic. And before we leave off, you got any final words, advice, anything you want to leave with the audience?
Not really. No, just give tallow a try. I think it'll blow your mind. If you don't like it, we'll give you your money back. So no risk.
Fantastic. Hey, that's good enough. Hell yeah, man. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much. And again, looking forward to much more success with the Van Man Company.
Yeah, thanks.